Chair recognizes Mr. Edwards for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can see now why things are so tough to get done up here in Washington, D.C. And I also understand why the folks on the other side of the aisle want to distract this conversation from its true purpose. As I look at this memorandum for the purpose of this meeting, I read that it is to examine the audits and evaluations conducted by inspectors general regarding factors that led to the collapse of the Afghan government and its security forces issues when it comes to evacuee resettlement and lessons learned from the evacuation from Afghanistan. And when I look at the timeline given us, produced by the Department of Defense under control of Biden, that evacuation began on April the 14th, 2021, under Biden's control. So I'd like to return the conversation back to the purpose of this hearing. And I appreciate all four of you being here and indulging us through the duration of this often distracted process. Mr. Sopka, you've mentioned many, many times that you've not received the cooperation that you would have expected to have received in your investigation. And obviously, while this is the first time I've had a chance to meet you, obviously you've got a long history in testifying before this committee. And so based on that history, what would be the advice to this committee as to what our next steps should be given the obstruction that you are getting from the current administration?
Just dealing with the obstruction issue, sir, I mean, I think the question somebody asked before is why aren't they providing us with the information, but they're providing it to the other IGs? I would seriously like to find out why they're doing that. If you're talking about just the obstruction, I'm not talking about your obstruction that you may have related to other investigations. I'm talking about my problem. I have a job to do, and I'm not able to do that job because of state and aid, and mainly state because they've issued this ridiculous legal opinion basically saying I no longer exist.
Thank you. And so what would be your advice to this committee as to enable you to do your job? What can we do to enable you to do your job?
Well, call in the administration and have them explain it. And, you know, look, I used to work for...
Perfect.
Okay.
That's all I need. Thank you. Mr. Storch, do you know, through your investigation, was there any specific consideration given to sensitive equipment that might have been left behind? We've talked about broken equipment and flat tires and all the other things that might have been left behind. A total of $7.2 billion, I heard you testify. Was there any specific consideration to sensitive equipment?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Yes, my office actually did an evaluation in August of 2021 as events were unfolding that looked at exactly that issue in terms of the accountability and controls to ensure that sensitive equipment was properly essentially wiped, that the sensitive information was taken care of, and that also that there were appropriate controls in place. And essentially we found that there were concerns that some of the sensitive information had not been taken off it before it was turned back in. Now, to be clear, this is being turned back in to the United States authorities, but on the other hand, we found that there were significant concerns regarding controls over that equipment so that we really couldn't be sure that all of it, in fact, was turned in.
And so would you consider that we had additional national security risks because sensitive equipment was left behind?
I wouldn't have any basis to go there. Again, you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I can't say that there would be particular national security risks. What our report found was that with the equipment that was turned in, not all the sensitive information was appropriately taken off it, and that there were concerns regarding accountability, and frankly, concerns about accountability as we've both testified, Mr. Sopko and I, about going back years. And so those two taken together create risks, but I couldn't go beyond that.
And so if there was sensitive equipment of national security interests left behind, and now we do not know whose hands that equipment is in, then there has to be additional risk. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, again, I can't say whether or not there was national security information that would not have been wiped. A lot of this was personal information, medical information, and things like that. But certainly, if you can't account for all the equipment, you can't rule out that possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I see my time's expired, so I yield.